And we are up at episode number 14 of the Our Town podcast. And we're recording this much sooner than I normally would between episodes. I've got Tim Knox again. And if you watched episode 13, it's going to look familiar. Like, hey, wait a minute, that's the same guy. It is the same guy. And so we're going to consider this part 2.
Okay.
But give it its own number, right? Episode. I get paid by the episodes.
Oh, do you? Well, then let's make it 14.
I pay myself. So it's episode 14. And glad to have you here. Let me ask you this. How was Father's Day?
Father's Day was good. What happened? I was taken out to eat. And when I say taken, I'm
Taken out.
I would just as soon stay home, but I was taken out to eat by my daughters, my son-in-law, my youngest daughter's boyfriend.
Okay.
And it was good. Had my grandkids there, and so we went out and played with the kids. But I also worked. I worked half a day, so it was just another day.
I saw you. I think you did your recording at the rental community. Was that yesterday?
I released it yesterday. Yeah.
Tell if people haven't seen that clip yet. Tell us a little bit about the community you came across in South Huntsville.
Yeah, it's in South Huntsville. This is actually going on all over the country now, but there are builders who are coming in, and rather than building apartment complexes, they're building standalone single-family homes. And they're like 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, very small and very close together, but they're still standalone. Mm-hmm. And they're doing entire subdivisions of this, and they're not for sale. They're all going to be for rent. And I was actually down on the south end of town doing some other business, and I just saw this neighborhood and pulled in and did a video. So it's a really cool concept. I mean, they have to really put in some investment to build all. There's probably going to be 50 single-family homes in there, but they're going to rent from $1,300 to $2,000 a month. So it's a new thing that's going on. Not everybody wants to live in an apartment.
Absolutely. I want to come back to that.
Sure.
But I just want to stay on the Father's Day. So first of all, where did you eat?
Sakura.
It's
right down here next to Publix. It's the one where they cook in front of you.
Oh, yeah, like a Japanese steakhouse?
It's like a Japanese steakhouse. That's our go-to spot. Although I probably won't go there again, because you know how they set it on fire?
Yeah, sure.
Scares the bejesus out of my grandson.
Yeah.
So
they feel the heat, and they'll
feel the heat, and it's just kind of scary for them. So yeah.
They did the whole onion choo-choo train.
Oh, they do the
volcano.
Onion volcano, and then they got the little guy they squeeze, and he waters, puts out the fire. You know where I'm going. But
and then they throw the chicken at you to catch.
They do the whole thing. They juggle the eggs, and but it's the best. It's really good if you like that kind of food.
I do. I just can't do it too soon, too frequent.
Yeah,
because it's like, all right, we kind of went through this before. It's the same shtick, right?
Yeah,
but it's good food.
It is really good food. I enjoy it.
Yeah. And awkward with the boyfriend and the younger daughter?
No, I probably shouldn't talk about this, but I will, because my daughter doesn't watch anything I do. She just has my youngest daughter, Sierra, has always been very focused on first school and then her career. She's got a master's in accounting, 26 years old, and she's never really given the male of the species the time of day. I mean, she's gone out on dates, and she's a lot like her dad. Her tolerance is not high. Yeah. So she'll 1 or 2 dates, and usually that's about it, because she's like a 90-year-old man. She wants to come in and get in her room and close the door about 8 o'clock. But anyway, this is a young man she met online, and I don't know, a month, 6 weeks ago, and they get along. Very nice kid, very nice kid.
Well, good for her for making that step, right?
Yeah.
Reach out and making a connection.
Well, she still lives at home.
Okay.
So we're ready for her to. We're not ready for her to leave, but
So you've got your whole family right there. Then we talked in the last episode about the fact that you're 5 doors down from your older daughter,
correct,
and son-in-law and 2 grandsons.
Yep.
And then your youngest Sierra lives with you.
Yeah, she. You ask her why she lives at home, she's why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't I?
But the house that we remodeled over by my other daughter, the way it was set up is it has the master downstairs. And so Melissa, my wife, has a bad knee. She doesn't like going up and downstairs, so she gets the master downstairs. And then upstairs, there are 4 bedrooms, and each 2 bedrooms have their own bathroom.
Okay.
So she has her own bedroom and her own office because she works from home, and she pays some rent.
Yeah.
But, she's like, why would I leave this I mean, she owns, 2 rental properties, but she's like, why would I move out?
Yeah.
And I don't want her to. She's my best pal, so.
You do and you don't, right? It's
yeah. I think it would be interesting to empty nest for a couple hours just to see what it's like, you know. And here's a funny one for you, Troy. Melissa and I went to the movies. We went to see Maverick, Top Gun. Enjoyed it very much. First movie that she and I have been to without the kids in over 20 years.
Really?
Really. Because we've just always included the kids, you know.
So did you watch a lot of kids movies then when you went with the kids?
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. My daughter Sierra, she's a Marvel addict. She's a real nerd. Mm-hmm. But she drags me to see all the Marvel movies, and you know, we would just go see Disney, Pixar, and we honestly could not remember the last movie we saw as a couple. Yeah. But we did figure out it was over 20 years ago. So
interesting. We were talking about this last night. I cooked some ribeyes. We had some baked potatoes. Great. We had just a meal at home, but they're like, "Hey, Dad, you want to watch a movie? You pick." I picked Despicable Me. I mean, I love Shrek and Despicable Me. Here. I love all the Pixars, and that's just entertaining to me. As many adult movies as there may be out there.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, especially now we got the grandsons. Yeah, you know, when Archer comes in, first thing he wants to do is turn on the big TV. And what's really funny is these kids are so tech now. Archer's 2.5. He has his own iPad. Thank you, Bumpa. And I mean, he can use it. Like, well, what's funny is when he's watching a television, he'll go up to the TV and try to swipe to change the channel like he does on his.
Well, you better get a touchscreen television at some point.
Yeah. Well, it's next on the list.
You're gonna be old fashioned.
Yeah, totally.
So I wanted to let you know that I did go to Farm Burger.
Did you?
I went on Saturday.
Was it good?
It was. Yeah. I just got the Farm Burger. Mm-hmm. A lot of times if I go to a place I haven't been, and then you look up and it's like, all right, option 1 is Farm Burger. Yeah. I'll get that. It's named after the establishment. It was good.
Yeah.
Fries were good.
My favorite. Yeah, the fries are good. They have regular fries, and then they have sweet potato fries, which are really good. Really good. So,
actually, that was Friday night. I think we went to Champy's.
What did you do for Father's Day?
You know, not much. Just kind of relaxed.
Just relaxed?
Yeah. Took a nap. I was really tired. You know, sometimes we were going to go on a hike and we didn't. I did go for a run. I do this all the time before an episode. I like to go and run about 2 or 3 hours before we have an episode just to think.
Yeah.
Right. And just say, okay, when Tim comes in today, you know, I'll put together in my mind, if you know, thoughts, contemplation time. Right. I was listening to Joe Rogan interview someone, and that just is always interesting. Right. I'll listen to different podcasts or music, but then I can't stop sweating.
Yeah.
But I did go for a run, and I don't know why. I won't ever want to run in the morning or in the early afternoon, but by like the late afternoon, I feel like I need to go and get some exercise. I just want to sweat and try to lose some weight.
You got to be careful in this heat.
I know. Hasn't been too bad. Yeah. The humidity actually, I think, has been down a little bit.
Yeah, yesterday was nice.
So let's get into the market.
Okay.
And actually, let's go back into that rental community. And I think you had just mentioned where not everybody wants to live in a condo, or an apartment. Right. So now you have builders saying, all right, let's do cottages or small single-family homes.
They're very much small. In fact, it's called the cottages. Okay. Is the neighborhood. But they're, like I said, they're 1 bedroom, 1 bath, or they've got 2 bedroom, 2 bath. But, I mean, basically, it was just a rectangle box. Yeah. And you walk in, and there's a living room, little dining area, kitchen, all in one open space. And then off to the right, you had a small bedroom with a shared bath, and then you had a master. But you know, it was really kind of a neat neighborhood. They're craftsman style homes. They're doing them with the hardy board siding that they can paint, right? So they're not all alike. But and I mean, there's not very much space between them. I mean, you could stand between them and do this. But have you ever lived in an apartment?
I have. Yes, when we first married.
You ever lived in a downstairs apartment?
I lived on the 3rd floor.
Oh, okay.
The top floor.
Yeah. The only apartment I've ever lived in, I think, was a downstairs. And the upstairs guy, there was this really heavy, large gentleman who lived upstairs. And you could just hear everything he did. Gosh. So I think that's why these standalone homes are so popular. It's because you don't have someone above you and behind you and under you and that sort of thing.
So are you familiar with, is this concept in any other region of the country?
It's starting all over the country. They've been doing this in California for quite a while.
Okay.
But again, you see all the apartment complexes going up here. You can always judge how a real estate market is growing by the number of apartments, especially new apartments under construction. And because, like, for example, with our market, we're at a 20-year low in inventory, so there's not a whole lot of houses to go around, so people have to have a place to live. So anytime you have a hot housing market with low inventory, you're going to see a lot of rental property. And usually that's apartments. But this was a cool little neighborhood. I think it's going to have a pool and a clubhouse and the whole thing. So
it's the highest concentration of apartments right now down in kind of town Madison around the stadium.
They're around the stadium, Providence. They've got more apartments coming. They're really all over the place. If you go down, is it Browns Ferry?
Yeah,
kind of a back road here. Yeah. There's a whole area there called Oak Place, Oak Leaf, but they're putting in these giant apartments right there where the cotton field used to be.
Okay.
And so, you always see that, again, in a market like this, you see a lot of rental property because I think we talked about this a little bit, new construction, we are the hotbed for new construction. Mm-hmm. And so as they build those homes, people have to have a place to live, so they build apartments.
And those all rear loading? Is there like an alleyway?
Some of them, the garage? Ones that have that are on the very narrow lots, they call them the zero line lots, where you literally don't have much side yard. They'll have the garages in the back, and you have a very small front yard. You have no backyard at all because that's your garage. Mm-hmm. And places like Cliff Farms, Providence, Town Madison, they're building those, and there's an alleyway that runs behind.
Yeah.
And then some of them, depending, and it goes back to the size of the lot, some of them will have the garages in the front, but usually they're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to, I think you posted some cool throwbacks on Facebook on like when you first started Revolved. Mm-hmm. It was about this time 4 or 5 years ago.
We actually are coming up on our 4-year anniversary. Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit. I don't know what the market was like in Alabama and Huntsville at that time, but if you could step us through what the market was like when you started.
Okay.
And then what changes you have seen to where we're at now.
Okay. When we started the company 4 years ago, it was not the seller's market we have now. It was a good market, but things did not sell overnight. Average days on the market 4 years ago here, 60 days on average, which meant some stayed on a lot longer. Back then, it was not unusual it was rare that you got multiple offers quickly. And typically when you got an offer, they would ask for things like closing costs and that sort of thing. So the seller, it was much more of a buyer's market, and the seller did not have control. Mm-hmm. So go up through last year. When the pandemic hit, that's really when the real estate market here got really interesting, because it did not slow down one iota.
Right.
I mean, I did not work every day. But over the last year or so, because of all of the people relocating here, and the fact that we're at a 20-year low in inventory simply because the available houses here just could not keep up.
Yeah.
So really, over the last year or so, we've seen it shift into a seller's market. We've seen it shift into a market where a lot of people are coming here paying cash. I had a client, he had a little, like a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in DC that he sold for like $800,000.
Right.
And came here, $800,000 here, you can buy a mansion. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up buying, I think he bought a $300,000 house. He bought a couple of rental properties. So the folks that are relocating here are coming with money to spend.
Right.
And anytime you have low inventory, you have buyers with cash, the property prices are going to go up. The availability is going to go down. Days on market are much less. Now, I think things are starting to soften a little bit, primarily because of the interest rates.
Right.
So, it's a completely different market than it was 4 years ago.
So 4 years ago in the buyer's market, were they coming in, buyers saying, "Hey, I want marble countertop or granite countertops. I want you to change this and change that."
Well, what they would typically do is they would come in and say, I'm going to offer you this much, but I want you to contribute. Let's say I'm going to offer you $250,000 for this house, but I want you to contribute $5,000 toward my closing costs. And sellers would do it. I mean, it really was the norm back then. But it's really funny when a seller gets in the driver's seat, they're not giving up anything.
Right.
Nothing. I mean, if you brought an offer to a seller in this market asking for all kinds of concessions and closing costs, your offer would just be kicked to the curb.
Right.
Because they don't have to do it. Sellers are very much in control here right now.
How much have you seen in the height of the market? Mm-hmm. What have you seen in what someone's willing to overpay?
We have seen, and I have heard of offers, I mean, up to $80,000, $90,000 over ask. And so we don't even call it ask anymore. We call it starting. This is the starting price.
Right.
You know, but it comes down to how badly they want the house, knowing that we're in a very tight market. It's very competitive, especially Madison. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants in Madison schools. There's not a lot of inventory in the city of Madison. When it does come out, that's when you see the multiple offers and the above asking price come in.
Yeah.
The thing about it is if you're paying cash, you don't have to worry about an appraisal. Typically there's not going to be an inspection with a whole lot of repairs tied to it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why cash in this market is always king. But if you're coming in with a loan, unless you can pay more or offer other, things that will convince them to take your offer, if you're just a traditional buyer looking to put 3% down and get a loan, you're really behind the eight ball in this market because you got so many people willing to come up and go above and beyond, and it's just impossible to compete.
So these are all things that must be a part of your training program with your agents, mm-hmm. and just the levers, right? Yeah. And are they also then, no matter what the transaction, circling back with you or Chelsea on, hey, I've got this buyer, kind of help me, or I got the seller, whatever it is, mm-hmm. help me through which levers to pull here to close this deal.
Yeah, we do that with a lot of new agents. The seasoned agents know. You just have to look at what is important to that seller. Yeah. And it kind of cracks me up because I will get phone calls from agents and they'll ask me, well, what's important to your seller? The most money, the fastest, with the fewest strings. That's it. Right. But, it's not always the best offer or the highest offer that wins because sellers have their own agenda as well. Most of them want to make as much money as they can, but they also want to have some freedom as far as, time to close, when they have to get out of the house. Is there going to be an inspection with a lot of repairs? Right. That's a big one when you're dealing with older homes. But
no contingencies.
No contingencies. Yeah. I mean, the perfect offer is a cash offer over asking price with no strings. Yeah. And we see a whole lot of those. But I really think it's going to change. Like I said, it's starting to soften a little bit. Yeah. If you look at the interest rates, if you had bought a $300,000 house in December, your house payment would have been about $1,200. If you bought a $300,000 house today, your house payment would be about $1,800. So that's a $600 rise in about 6 months. And, that determines how much house people can buy, And that's the thing they always look at is everybody wants to know, what's my monthly payment? Yeah. Okay, what's my monthly payment? Well, if you had, your monthly payment could only be $1,200, well, now you're not going to buy a $300,000 house. You might buy one that's $225,000 if you can find it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the big impact is the interest rates determine your monthly payment, and that determines how much house you can buy. And we work with a lot of buyers that are having to readjust their focus because, 6 months ago, their budget was $400, $450. Now it might be $350, mm-hmm. which is a really hard pill for a lot of folks to swallow, that they've got to ratchet down their wish list there. Yeah. But it's just the state of this market.
So when you started Revolved, I've owned homes, been through you had an agent every time, right? Mm-hmm. And representing the buying or the selling. Certainly learned a lot, on that side of the transaction. So when you started Revolved, give us an idea of how much you still had to learn. I'm assuming you don't know their homes, or you're a pretty smart guy. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten into real estate.
Well, I don't know about that.
But what are some of the things that you've learned? Because sometimes on the surface it seems, oh yeah, it makes sense. Closing costs, you're going to fix this, you're going to fix that. But really, give us an idea of the value add. As the owner of Revolved and the agent you're training, what is that? Those kind of those skills that you've learned or the knowledge that you've really gained in the last 4 years.
Yeah. When I got into real estate, when I started the company, I literally knew nothing.
Yeah.
Buying houses does not prepare you to be a realtor. Real estate schools do not prepare you to be a realtor. So there was a lot to learn from different standpoints. Number one, of course, is you got to learn all about the contracts and all of that stuff. That's the important stuff, but you've also got to learn everything to get you to contract. And so, one of the first things I had to learn was how to really, walk through a home. If I was on the listing side, to walk through a home and determine that home's value. Mm-hmm. We have tools like the MLS. That's where we run all of our comps. We can go in there and look at everything in the neighborhood that's sold, that sort of thing. But my daughter taught me this lesson. It's all about price per square foot. Mm. And this was a lesson that I didn't think about, because I would just say, well, that one sold for $300,000. This one's across the street. It should sell for, you really learn the difference between your house and the one across the street. Mm-hmm. It's not just a blanket, every house in this neighborhood is going to sell for this. You really break it down on a square foot price.
Right.
And square foot price is based on things like size, condition, location. A lot of that goes into it. Mm-hmm. But learning how to do that, and then really, there's a lot of negotiation that goes on in this business. You've got to be able to, if you're going to list it, set a house fairly at market value.
Yeah.
You've got to be the one that's going to accept offers from the other agent. You need to be able to take those offers and pick them apart and present them to your client. One of the hardest things in this market is if you we had one house, I think we had 25 offers on. And the agent called me up and said, I don't have a clue which one of these is best. And so
all over the map.
Yeah, they really were, because this one was this price, this one was cash, this one was, a loan, this one had a quick close, that one, And so we actually developed a little piece of an Excel file to help do that. But, learning all of that stuff goes into being a great realtor.
Right.
Pricing, negotiation. The hard part in real estate that I'm finding apparently is you learn to do that and still be a nice guy.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of not nice guys. Realtors are like doctors. We're not supposed to talk bad about each other.
Right.
But it's an interesting business, and I think one of the reasons why we've done as well as we have is we're very friendly. We're very above board. We don't do drama, not allowed. But our agents all know their math, which is the most important part when you're coming to selling a house.
So with the advent of the sophistication of the internet and tools and things like that, has there been an uptick in sell by owner, or people saying, you know what, I don't need an agent. I got all the tools. I got all the data. I can look at Zillow and all these other things.
The wonderful Zestimate. Zestimate is the bane of my existence, because they're never right and they're always high.
Right.
No, it's a good point. There is a rise in for sale by owner. We call them FSBOs, simply because people look at this market and go, why do I need a realtor? Mm-hmm. I'll just put my house on the market and I'll get 20 offers by tomorrow. It's not that easy. People don't realize that when you're selling a home by yourself, you're the one that's got to take the pictures. You got to put it on Zillow. You got to field phone calls. You got to put up with strangers traipsing through your house, unescorted. You got to come up with a sales contract. Believe it or not, we earn our money.
Yeah, sure.
And that's one of the hard pills that some FSBOs have to swallow. And I've had a lot of FSBOs call me up and say, hey, look, I've already got a buyer. I just need help with paperwork. Can you come in and do that? And we do what's called transaction brokerage, where we literally come in. We don't advise. We just do the paperwork. And that's one of the big things in our industry is when you get a new client, you have them sign a real estate disclosure document that describes the services you offer. And you could be, a single agent with agency, meaning that you're advising them, you're helping them make decisions, you are their advocate. Then again, you can do what's called transaction brokerage, where you just do the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
You don't advise, you don't help, you don't do any of that stuff. You're not a consultant. You're just doing the paperwork. And so, I mean, that's one of the things that determines the level of service that we offer. When I come into a for sale by owner, 9 times out of 10, their house is not priced correctly.
Yeah.
They don't even have a sign in the yard. They haven't bothered putting it on Zillow, but they just assume that in this market, buyers will get wind of their house and come over and buy it. But yeah, the long answer to a short question is, we're seeing a rise in for sale by owners. But again, I think that's something in this market, it's to be expected.
Yeah.
And again, the problem with for sale by owners is they don't have the data we have.
Sure.
They are, they're pulling prices out of there. Well, my neighbor's house sold for $300,000, so mine should.
Right.
Well, what if it's a completely different house? So it's one of the big things that we do with any seller, FSBO or otherwise, is we just have the expertise of how to price the house fairly, how to market it fairly, how to get people in. We don't let anybody walk through a house unless they've got a pre-qualification letter from a lender, because there's no need for them to look at the house if they can't buy it.
Right.
So little things like that is where we come into service with FSBOs.
So here's an observation.
Okay.
My buddy, he always told me you can gauge how expensive a house is by the complexity of the roof. The more complex the roof is, then you know that's a quality built home.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Which
I love
maybe
about my house here compared to my house that I had in Virginia.
Yeah.
That was a very simple roof.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful.
So
it was a nice
he's talking
home.
about the design of the roof.
Just
different.
There's going to be some.
Yeah. It'll be a lot more expensive to re-roof. I can tell you that. But that's one of the big expenses. In our flipping business, the roof is always the biggest expense. I love a nice, simple roof.
Right.
But if you get a roof like yours where you've got angles and all this sort of thing, I think it does kind of say something about the build and the builder.
Right.
Because it is a complex build, and typically it's going to be a quality builder that does that. So, it's a good observation.
It's like we didn't, in this market, so I'll just tell you a couple things about buying this house, but we didn't do a home inspection because they wouldn't have chosen our offer.
Right. Yep.
Which is a huge roll of the dice.
It is.
For me in the homes.
Did you find anything after you moved in?
No, we haven't found anything. Most of it's just been aesthetic.
Sure.
But it is interesting when you go into the attics. So coming from Virginia where we had basements, that was a tough adjustment.
Right.
Coming here to, at least it's not Florida where they're all one-level homes.
Mm-hmm.
At least in Alabama, there's 2-level homes, and we still have some stuff. We downsized a lot, but still, where do you store all your stuff?
Right.
But we have all these little attic spaces, and I go in there, though, and that's the only problem with the complexity of a roof. Then it seems to be a lot of wasted space because you can't really finish it off. It's hard to, you're not going to store your stuff there, where when you kind of have a real simple roof, I think you can use your attic space a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
So what you have this channel with relocating to Huntsville.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to contact you that are interested. What are some of the biggest stereotypes that you have to help them overcome about moving to North Alabama?
Good question. The biggest question that I get the most is, how often do tornadoes come through?
Right.
I had a lady who came down from Jersey, and I do this a lot now because I'll get half dozen contacts a week coming off that channel, and a lot of folks want to come here and visit, so they'll fly in and we give them the nickel tour on the weekends. We put them in the car, ride them all around, show them houses, and this one lady, literally every other sentence was about tornadoes.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do they come through? How big do they get? What are my odds of being struck? I mean, she literally was under the assumption that regardless of where she bought a house in North Alabama, at some point it was going to be hit by a tornado.
Yeah.
She was thoroughly convinced. Of course, we had to re-educate her. We do get tornadoes here, but we are not the hotbed that, Midwest, that sort of thing is. A lot of folks have questions about, and it's really funny, how backward is Alabama? And I'm like, pretty backward. No, it's not. Well, they have all these preconceived notions.
Right.
We're all backward. We don't wear shoes. We don't have all of our teeth. We marry our cousins.
Yeah.
I do have very attractive cousins, but that's beside the point. But those little stupid stereotype things are the things that really we address the most. But, the thing about it is where we are, Huntsville, Madison, North Alabama, especially Huntsville and Madison, it's not Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it very much is unlike any other city in the state. I mean, I always tell everybody, if you want to find Alabama, go south of the river bridge, because that's really when the state starts.
Yeah.
We just have such a diverse population here.
Yeah.
I think a good percentage of our population moved here from somewhere else, and they brought their culture and their religion and their ways. And so it's pretty diverse here. But that's the big thing they want to know about. Are the stereotypes true?
Okay.
But again, tornadoes is the big one. We get a bad rap for tornadoes.
Harvest gets hit though, right?
Well,
Parts of harvest.
What happens is if you look at most weather patterns, they come up from the Gulf,
right?
And they come up through Mississippi, and then they cut a swatch really across north of here, North Madison County. So out north of Harvest, there's a neighborhood called Anderson Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson Hills has been hit a couple of times, and there's a stigma there. People looking at houses or trying to sell houses in Anderson Hills, even though it's been years since a tornado came through, people from here remember that.
Yeah.
And, they think, well, it's happened there. And that's literally where the weather patterns go.
Right.
But, it's a concern, but, and that's why I tell them, look, we have them, but they don't come around very often. When they do come around, usually they're not as devastating. I mean, we've had, two or three really bad breakouts here, I think, over my lifetime.
Yeah.
But, you got your California earthquakes, you got your wildfires, you got your volcanoes elsewhere. The good news is because of the weather here, believe it or not, most weather innovations in weather forecasting happen here.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Bob Barron. Bob was a weatherman back in the 70s, 80s, and he started a company called Barron Services years and years ago using NASA technology. And he was one of the first ones, I think the Doppler radar. So all of the weather forecasting stuff you see on TV,
wow,
most of that came out of Barron Services right here. And so I always thought that was kind of cool that, this weatherman quit and started this technology company that now practically every TV station in the country uses to predict. But you'll notice when the weather starts getting bad here, we get a lot of notice. I mean, there's not a pop-up tornado unless
right.
it's, they've been on television for 3 hours telling you to take cover.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the big thing there. They want to know about the weather.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you have to remind people, it's like probability. It's probably the same probability of winning the lottery or being in an auto accident.
Right. Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah.
To
Do you
people.
remember the movie, The World According to Garp?
No.
With Robin Williams? There's a movie came out years ago. Anyway, he and his family are looking at buying this house.
Right.
And they're standing in the yard and they hear this airplane coming. And it's this little crop duster just sputtering, and it comes and crashes right into the house. And Robin Williams says, "We'll take it."
We'll take
and
it.
his wife goes, "Are you crazy?" He goes, "Hey, what are the odds that this house will ever get hit by another airplane?"
I like that.
Same kind of reasoning, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was going to tell you one funny thing too. One of the most clever things I've heard when people compare North Alabama or Huntsville to Alabama, they say, Huntsville, we don't go by our last name.
And it's very true.
I don't know if you've got the other.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just, this is so different.
Yeah.
Not just the population, but it all comes from the population.
Or the other one I've heard is, Huntsville is very different than Alabama, but every now and then Alabama encroaches on Huntsville. But I don't really have an example of that.
Yeah. Well, I give Decatur a hard time. I shouldn't, because I love Decatur. We do a lot of business there. But again, if you cross that bridge, it's almost like you can just feel things slow down.
Yeah.
Athens is the same way. Athens is a very much a nice southern, laid back town. And one of the things that I hear from people moving here is how nice we are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always surprised. You people are so nice. What did you expect?
So here's a question of curiosity
Sure.
that I have not asked anyone outside of my family,
Okay.
but I figure you might be someone who has been asked. The strip club that's right over here off of
Pink Pony?
the Pink Pony 2. I think
Yeah.
it's the Pink Pony 2, right? That's near Walmart and across from the bowling alley.
Yep. Formerly Jimmy's.
Okay. Is there a call from people who come from out of town to say, not in my backyard, that needs to go?
No, the people that raised Cain about that little strip, it's been there forever.
Sure.
And for many, many years, it was Jimmy's.
And it was all by itself.
It was all by itself. There was the bowling alley was across the street, but there was no retail. But when Jimmy, who I've never had the pleasure to meet, opened that club, 20, 25 years ago, there was a church nearby. And so the church started, petitioning with the powers that be that there shouldn't be, it wasn't necessarily that it was a strip club, they served alcohol.
Okay.
And so Jimmy's like, no problem. We'll just give up our liquor license. We'll charge $20 a head to come in the door and you can bring your own. And so he just kind of got around that loop. And finally they just gave up and left him alone. But he must have sold it a few years ago because I noticed they painted the place pink and, but we don't have a lot of strip clubs here.
Yeah.
And, I don't really think it's a strip club so much as girls in bikinis dancing. There's only so much you can do here.
Okay.
But there's only a couple of them, but nobody really pays them much mind anymore. They're kind of a local establishment. Everybody knows about Jimmy's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's similar to what you get from an HOA when you get the really active HOA, right? And they're after you for every little thing.
Yeah.
And you get same concerned citizens come in, right? And and they move to Alabama and they head up, what is that, County Line? And they go east on 72 and they're heading to Walmart or the Tractor Supply or the IHOP. You're like, what is that? And if there was how often maybe it comes up where someone's trying to...
I have not heard a complaint in years. Like I said, the local church was trying to put them out of business, but they said, hey, we'll give up our liquor license, no problem. You can buy a glass of orange juice for $20.
So now let's talk about forecasting where the market's going to go. So certainly we need inflation to come down. It's killing the country, and gas prices and interest rates are going up, and prices, I guess, are kind of leveling, which is interesting. As you said, it's going to cost you 30-40% more now than it did back in December to on your mortgage. Where in Huntsville do you think is going to get do we have any areas that are just going to be not representative of the overall market in the country?
Right.
Where there's going to continue to be strong?
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I get a lot is there a bubble here? Mm-hmm. And I contend that there is not a bubble here. We're very unique in that we are growing at a rapid pace. Our economic development folks do a great job of bringing industry here. I don't see that slowing down at all. So there's always going to be that demand for housing. The one thing that people do is they talk about the housing crisis back in 07 and 08 and say it's going to have a completely different set of circumstances. Back in 07, 08, they had all these subprime mortgages. If you could fog up a mirror, you could get a mortgage.
Right.
And so that was what really caused that housing crash then, was all these subprime mortgages. They were all defaulting, this sort of thing. Well, you don't have that now. We have, there's enough inventory. It's low given that, but you don't see people that can't afford to buy homes buy homes. The other thing in this market, homeowners here, because of the rise in appreciation, have a lot of equity. Back in 07, there was no equity because people were just overpaying and they were upside down on loans. Well, you don't see that now. But, I don't think that things are going to slow down here tremendously for the foreseeable future.
Right.
We're seeing the market soften a little bit. And again, it's because, interest rates. But as far as demand and that sort of thing, it's going to take a while before the inventory catches up with demand.
Yeah.
The builders are trying. I mean, we got a lot of building starts going on here. But again, when the number of people moving to an area outweigh the inventory of housing,
Yeah.
it's going to be that way for a while. You know, the other thing, we've experienced such amazing growth. I mean, over the last year, property values are up 20, 30%, depending on where you are. And again, that's good for homeowners because it builds their equity.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't really see it slowing down much. There's always going to be, even with high interest rates, people have to have houses.
Yeah.
You know, so I remember my first home loan back in 88. I had a 14% ARM.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know,
Sure.
people were buying houses left and right. So I think interest rate's going to impact to a degree. You know, the people that are wrong are the ones that are saying, well, I'll wait for prices to come down.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait for interest rates to drop. You're going to have a very long wait.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, certainly for us. Help me with, so these are the trends that I can see. One, we know that the FBI still has thousands more jobs to transition here. Space Command, Space Force is coming.
Yep.
We are now number one place to live. That will bring some number of people, right? That look at those types of things and are important to them. What am I missing? What are some other things on a kind of a national scale, or things that we're just the beneficiaries of when it comes to industry?
Well, the high growth is going to continue. You're going to have companies like Amazon expanding here.
Yeah.
Facebook is expanding here. You know,
Toyota
Mazda on the automobile side. I just think you're going to see more and more companies moving here. You know, especially those that are space related, and you know the fact that Bezos has Blue Origin here building rocket engines is just huge.
Right.
So again, I don't see it, and I think we kind of touched on this on the last show. Is back a couple of decades ago, this area was reliant on Redstone Arsenal and all the defense contractors.
Yeah.
And there was always the fear that if the arsenal went away, Huntsville just becomes a little podunk cotton town again.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately now the arsenal could go away, we would survive.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much tech and defense here, and Tesla will be here at some point. They have to.
Sure.
Just to keep up with everybody.
Yeah.
So from an economic standpoint, that's killer. I love that. The one fear is that homes here will get so expensive that normal folks can't afford them.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
One of the things going on in California right now is the normal wage earner cannot afford a house in California. That's why there's so much homelessness. And we're not at that point yet. I don't know if we ever will get to that point, but that is a valid concern. If property values keep doing this, but wages and the economy start doing this, it's going to be harder for folks to buy homes.
Yeah, I'm certainly concerned about infrastructure and roads.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
There will be a lot of that they'll have to deal with, but I also have, in the little time I've been here, I feel like we've got pretty strong leadership in both, both mayors of, Tommy Battle over in Huntsville and actually I'm on the spot.
Paul Finley,
the mayor of Madison.
Yep.
What does Huntsville not do well? Or what are some of those, we're touching on a little bit here, but some things we really kind of need to turn around. I know you have a pro and con video.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I think I watched it, but I can't remember the cons that much.
Well, I think a lot of the cons, and this is the number one complaint I hear is typically from young folks.
Okay.
And I've heard this complaint for, I used to make this complaint back when I was a teenager. There's not a lot to do at night here. And that was always the big thing of, the young folks coming here. Huntsville is not really good at keeping them entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's changing. We have a really, Chad Emerson is doing a killer job downtown.
Yep.
Really a really robust downtown. I think now everybody wants to be down there. And then you've got things like, Mid-City, and you got, like Top Golf and a rock climbing wall, and you've got all these restaurants here. Huntsville could do a better job at attracting more of that sort of thing.
Sure.
Because once you get the people here, the younger ones, you got to keep them entertained.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the one thing that they really need to work on. I'm glad that they're bringing in all this industry and all these employers, But again, you've got to keep the people happy and entertained once they get here.
Yeah.
So I think they could do a better job of that. Part of the reason where a lot of the national chains, for example, the population of Huntsville has never been large enough to warrant them coming here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that we're the biggest city in the state and we're, we got a lot of folks here, now I think you're going to see like the national chains starting to come here. Mm-hmm. But that's the biggest thing really has been there's just nothing to do at night.
Yeah.
But I think we're doing a good job along just about everything else. I mean, they're building new schools left and right. They understand the value of that. They're doing their best to keep up with the roads. I know in the city of Madison, there's orange barrels everywhere,
yep.
but that's just the sign of progress.
Yeah.
And that's just something people will just have to put up with until they can catch up. So
check out episode 8. Chad Emerson was on here.
Chad's a great guy. I love him.
I was very fortunate that we had him on the day after the announcement that we were number 1. So that was perfect timing.
Yeah, they're doing a great job downtown.
To talk to him, to things like that. So on the flip, let's talk about the flipping side.
Okay.
And this is a little bit of like explore how skilled Tim Knox is. Do you have an area in carpentry or a trade that you have a penchant for when it comes to remodeling?
I have a penchant for finding people with way more skills than I have,
okay.
And writing them a check. My wife calls me Tool Time Tim. Okay. Because basically what I can do is screw it up and then find somebody to fix it. And okay. I tell her one of the reasons I work so hard is so I can afford to hire people smarter than me to do those things.
But you have the vision, though.
I have the vision.
You kind of know what you want.
Well, yeah. I'm more or less the math guy. When my partner's my oldest daughter, Chelsea, who's just amazing. I mean, and I think I told you, she does a lot of flips. She does a lot of design. They're actually doing some custom building. She had done a pilot for HGTV. She's the whole package. So in our flipping business, I'm typically the one that will go in, work the deal, do the negotiation, get it tied up, and then I will, she and I will walk a property, and she has the ability to just walk through and tell you what it's going to cost.
Okay.
And so she takes over then. I manage the money. I try to keep us on budget. That is my forte. And then she is the one that comes in with the grand vision. And her husband, Ammon, is our project manager. Okay. So she sees it. He makes it happen. And I write the checks. Okay. So, but the thing with flipping is that you make your money on the front end. Yeah. The amount of money you make on the back depends on how much you spend on the front. This market's been extremely difficult to find flips simply because properties are going too high. Yeah. And there's just no meat on the bone for flippers.
Has there been an increase? Because it seems like that is a much more common part of the industry with people interested in flipping homes. Certainly you watch them on TV. It looks simple. It's not. We were talking a little bit last episode where a show would only be interested in coming into doing a feature if you have 25 homes, right? Because they have to do one home per episode. Yeah. But I'm assuming a lot of people have gotten burned.
A lot of people have lost money.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to a couple of things. Everybody watches HGTV. They see these flipping shows, and rarely do you see one of those shows where they lose money. Yeah. Magically, right? And so people think it's easy to do. And so they will go out and find some dilapidated property. And, unless you know how to price things, there's no way you can estimate how much it's going to cost to remodel, especially with building materials now. Right. And so, there have been a lot of folks that have gone in, overpaid, bought houses that they could not make any money on, and they did it simply because they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah. They didn't do their homework. With me, when I go out and look at a flip, I know already how much that house will be worth when we're done. So that determines how much I have to get it for, how much I have to put in it, and then how much we're going to make. Yeah. And so if you go in and overpay on a lot of flips like people have been doing all year, again, there's just no meat on the bones when you are ready to sell that. Yeah. They don't think about things like, what is it going to take to buy the property? You're going to go get a bank loan. If you're doing a flip, you got to put 20% down, If you can't get a bank loan, there's what's called private money, but it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Private money typically comes with, you pay 3 or 4 points up front, and then it's 12 to 15% interest. So all of that has carrying charges. So it's not just buying the property, getting it fixed, and selling it. You've got to maintain it. You got to hold it. If it takes you 3 or 4 months to do the work, well, that's 3 or 4 months worth of money you're going to owe somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just don't do their math.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is, I think I'm going to start getting phone calls from people who have bought these potential flip houses, and they're probably upside down and need to get out. But again, I'll look at the math before I determine it's something I'm going to buy.
How about the neighborhood itself that it's in? I mean, you can do a great job on a house, but if it's if it's still the other homes around it are an eyesore, is that something where you're out?
Pretty much.
Okay.
The last thing you want to do is overbuild for a neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you're in a neighborhood of old dilapidated houses and you're going to fix one up and make it the nicest house on the street, you also got to remember who's going to live there after you're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing you got to keep in mind, is you got to sell this thing. So if it's, just a gorgeous remodel, but you're on a street where, everything else is falling apart and overgrown, you're not going to get your money out.
Right.
Yeah.
I always found it amusing when they would do those home makeovers, and there was some family that clearly wasn't able to even keep their house clean.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what condition it was
Right.
in. Now they build them this beautiful home. I always wanted them to go back 6 months, a year later, and just see how they destroyed it.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think their habits were going to change that much.
That's it. That's it exactly. Remember the show Extreme Home Makeover with Ty Pennington?
Yeah, Ty Pennington.
That's kind of what they would do.
Yeah.
Is they would go in and there'd be a hoarder situation, or the house was falling down or whatever. And I remember seeing a news report where they actually went back and looked at some of these, extreme homes. Well, and a number of them, the folks could no longer even afford to pay the electric bill.
Right.
But a lot of them were just as run down and shabby when they went back to look at them, because you're right. You're not changing the habits of the person living there.
Yeah.
You can give a hoarder a nice house. They're just going to fill it up.
So we didn't really get into what is the vision you have for Revolve? Now, from a Tim Knox perspective, your wife's, you were joking about how you get kind of ADD when it comes to career, and it's been 4 years, and it's not like you want to do something else, but you've had that kind of penchant to redefine yourself. We are now at 85 agents. What's the vision? What's the goal for the company?
Yeah, it's good question. And the good thing about real estate is it's something new every day.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I got bored in the past is it was just mundane.
Yeah.
Especially the software business, because I was just managing a bunch of engineers. There was no creative outlet. And that's a big thing with me, is I'm all about the business, but if I can have a little bit of fun over here doing it, good to go. That's one of the reasons why I like doing this. I like doing the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But with us, we're at 85 agents. We just opened our second office in Decatur. I would like to open an office in Athens toward the end of the year. But the plan there is just to keep growing, keep recruiting, keep growing. We're at the point now where I'm having to delegate some of that to people. I've got Kim Savage, who is our marketing director. She's kind of our den mother. She runs the office, but she also does liaison with the agents. She's helping recruiting. So she's taking a lot off my plate. Of course, my daughter Chelsea gets involved whenever we need her. Of course, she's more involved in the flipping business, which is a separate business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think we keep growing like we're growing. I think we've proven the concept at this point that it works really well for agents. And my goal, I've never set huge lofty goals. Last year ago January, there were 10 of us, and I thought, okay, we'll have 50 by the end of the year. Well, we ended up having 70 by the end of the year. Yeah. And then this year, growth has been a little slower. We've lost a few. But we're at 85 now. I think we'll hit 100 agents this year. And, my plan is just to keep growing and going. Yeah. And, I don't do everything. I got some really good people with me, and that's important. Valerie Povey is our broker in Decatur. She's the only reason I opened the office there. If she had not been available, because I can't get to Decatur all the time. That's one of the hard things when you do start growing is finding people that you can hand those things off to.
Sure.
People that, buy your vision and will do things like you want it done and that sort of thing. But yeah, we're going to keep growing that. Our remodeling business, I think we're going to start giving more time to that. We're going to start doing a lot more marketing, just to find deals and that sort of thing. So ideally I would have Revolved Realty, just churning and burning and, more agents but then we'd have the renovation business where we're doing more flips, because we've just kind of been doing one here and one there. And again, it's a lot of us because we haven't been able to find anything.
Yeah.
We bought 2 in the last week that are going to be good for us. So
yeah, you were just touched on a really important point. You can't grow too fast where you lose the quality of the Revolve name and what you guys stand for.
Yeah. It's one of the worst things that can happen to a business is to grow too quickly.
Yeah.
Because it does affect the quality of the product. And we've been very, very fortunate. We've been able to maintain our level of service, but we're also very picky about who we let in the company.
Sure.
Not every Tom, Dick, and Joe realtor get to, work with us. And the thing is, we're very much a family. We call ourselves a family. Mm-hmm. And we get along well. We'll all do everything we can for each other. And, it kind of goes back to my motto is no drama, no BS.
Yeah.
And we're one of the few brokerages, I think, that do that. I've talked to folks that if they came on, they could really add a lot to our bottom line, but I'm afraid they'd also add to the drama factor. Mm-hmm. And it's just not worth it to me.
Sure.
So, our plan, even if we have to stay the size we are, we're going to only let good folks come over and wear our logo. So.
That's awesome. I think I saw one of your agents had 4 closings on Saturday. It was like 1 of 4. She was posting like 1 of 4, 2 of 4.
It was probably Norland.
Yeah, that's it.
Norland, this kid.
Becerra?
Norland Becerra.
Becerra, yeah.
Yeah, she's been with us a year. She was 19 when she joined.
Wow.
And just, she decided rather than go to college, she loved real estate. She came over, got her license with us, and she's 20 now.
Yeah.
And just churning and burning, man.
That's awesome.
She was just sponge, though. She learned everything she could learn. She showed up every day. She did the work, and it's really paying off now for her.
So we're going to play a new game.
Uh-oh.
We're in episode 14.
Okay.
We always do I've been doing the quick 6.
Right.
You did do the quick 6 in episode 13.
Yeah, I dodged half the questions, but that's okay.
But now we're going to play the pick 6.
Okay.
PIC.
Okay.
6. So I'm going to show you 6 pictures.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Images. Whatever screen you can see. I'll switch over here to the internet in a second here. And I kind of thought it might be fun. So the idea here is I'm going to show you a picture.
Okay.
First word that comes to mind. And then, of course, we can have some commentary after that. Okay, you ready?
All right.
Here we go.
This should be interesting.
Let me see. Yes, I am. I got to switch over here on the software. There it is. Game time. The pick 6. There's Tim. And actually, let me, I'm going to have to do one thing here.
Okay.
I didn't really think through this. Okay. I'm going to have to edit this out, but that's okay.
Okay.
Here we go. The pick 6. Tim Knox. This is the debut. Boom.
Oh, wow. Is that an old word? No, it's an Apple Lisa.
I don't know what it is.
Here.
But I figured you would.
Yep. Hold on a minute. Let me get my eyeballs.
Put on your glasses.
Yeah, that is an Apple Lisa. I can tell you stories about this. I think on the last show we talked about, I was a technical illustrator for Boeing.
Yeah.
Before computers. And this was, you walk in a room and there'd be like 30 drafting tables with guys hunched over drawing and smoking. We could smoke back then. Everything was done with pen and ink.
Yeah.
The very first computer that we got in the graphics group was it was an Apple Lisa.
That was that
and
one.
that monitor is about that big, right? And so, but it was like the second coming because you could do flow charts and word things and print them out.
And that was a floppy drive there on the right.
It was a 5 1/4 floppy drive. Look at that mouse.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I picked this on purpose knowing that you started your career there before computers, and I figured I am not old enough where I use something like this. Maybe they had some relics in school.
This was the Apple Lisa.
Okay, next picture. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this.
That is a cruise ship.
Just first thing that comes to mind.
First thing that comes into my mind is my wife would never get on one of
Never
those. We've never gone on a cruise. Back years ago, I used to do training for online stuff.
Yeah.
And I would speak at all these seminars, and I got booked on a cruise ship. And it was an eBay cruise. That's what it was. Anyway, the day that I got back, that ship caught fire.
Oh, gosh.
And a friend of mine sent me a picture, and I made the mistake of showing it to Melissa. She's like, I'll never get on one of those damn things, ever.
Because it caught on fire.
Never been on one. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love them.
But, so.
There's horror stories out there. Just like the tornadoes and win the lottery.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to happen. You can get on a really crappy flight. You can get on a bad train. There's some bad cruises, but I've had nothing but excellent times.
That ruined her on ever going on a cruise.
Okay, here's the next one. First thing that comes to mind.
Buried treasure. Buried treasure.
Oh, yeah.
What else could come? I think for some reason I thought of Captain Jack Sparrow and his jar full of dirt.
I was thinking,
not quite sure why.
What lucky soul would ever come across that on a beach, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You just come across some crappy shells and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of you find some interesting things in some old houses that you go through.
That's true.
Yeah. A lot of times, especially if the person who'd been living there was just older and passed, and I mean the families will come in and just get what they want, but by and large everything else remains.
Okay.
And I have a buddy who will come in and clean out the entire house for free, hoping there's treasure to be found. Sometimes there is and sometimes there ain't.
Okay, here. Now, this is going to be up your alley as a real estate agent.
All right.
I don't know if we have any properties like this in North Alabama.
Wow, we don't, but I wish we did. We've got some that are close to that. I sold one out in Owens Crossroads last year. I think it was $2.2 million, and it looked like a castle. It's just beautiful. There's actually, have you heard about the place here in Madison?
Yeah. It's $12 million?
Well, they had it priced at $12.2, I think. It did not sell. They put it to auction. It did not meet reserve, but someone has bought it. And the word is they're paying somewhere around $8 million for it, but it's got 57 acres.
Wow. Who owned it before?
It was in the Whitehead family. No, Whitehead was the married name. The guy that founded, I believe, Adtran back in the day. It was family money.
Okay.
I think it was one of his daughters.
Okay.
And is a really cool house, but it was so custom.
Yeah.
You know, if I bought it, I would change everything in it. But no, it would be and it's really funny. Most realtors would love to get a house like this. I will take a bunch of little houses over this house any day of the week.
It's probably going to be a pain in the neck.
Well, the buyer pool for a house like this are very small, especially here.
Sure.
You know,
you got
California maybe, but here not so much.
I mean, I always hope that no matter, this is obviously a very large size home, but you always hope the person can actually afford to furnish the home.
Well, my wife's question would be, who's going to clean this? Because it ain't going to be her.
And utility bill.
Yeah.
All right, here's the next one. First thing that comes to mind.
I love that. I wish I was there. Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like being up on Montesano.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you been down on the Southern Pass yet? I don't even know what it's called.
I don't. You know, I'm not really outdoorsy. I mean, number one, I'm incredibly busy, but I know a lot of folks love Montesano and the hiking trails and all that stuff up there.
But this is just a roadway. I happen to go on the other side. Over Montesano, driving south on, I haven't even lived here long enough to even know what road that is. When you're heading over to Hampton Cove.
Yeah.
And then we took a right, and then it brings you ultimately over to like
Huntsville.
South Huntsville, where the ledges
that's the Carl
is.
T. Jones bypass. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is. It's been there what, a year, 2 years?
Yeah, it hasn't been very long, and I'm glad they did that, because before you would have to go all the way back into Huntsville, get on the Parkway, and go to South Huntsville. So that connected Owens Crossroads and South Huntsville. You can literally get there in 10 minutes.
I thought just the descent out of, coming from that side was awesome. There's a nice view area. I didn't stop for it at the time, but I just thought that it was really pretty.
Well, there are some overlooks up on Montesano that give you this kind of view.
Okay, here's the next one. Okay. I think this is our last one.
Let me get my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Is that track?
It's the Olympics.
Things Tim would never do: run track or go to the Olympics.
Go to the Olympics. Yeah. Yeah. The Olympics.
I don't go anywhere, Troy.
Olympics is not really on my bucket list.
Mine either. I've never really watched it on TV. I'm glad it's there, and
yeah,
but I'm really not a big outdoors person. A buddy of mine was going to a Trash Pandas game went on Saturday, and I'm like, you're going to burn up. Why would you do? Oh, it's fun. No, you're going to burn up. So.
It does take until about the 7th inning if you go at night, where it kind of feels like, okay, it's starting to feel comfortable.
Starts to cool off. Yeah.
Yes.
We used to have another baseball team here.
Huntsville Stars.
Huntsville Stars.
Yeah.
And I tried going. I think we went to like 3 games. And as soon as the hot dogs were finished, my girls were like, let's go. We never got past the 3rd inning.
Well, thanks for playing the first pick 6.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure.
Just pick out some images and,
yeah,
go from there.
Yep.
I wanted to go back to something you said in the prior episode, and I'm drawing a blank now. But we're probably getting close to closing up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anything we haven't covered related to the market that you would like to dive into?
Yeah. Not really. I mean, it's just an interesting time right now. The big thing, again, is with these interest rates, it's really affecting how much house you can buy. We're still very much in a seller's market, 20-year low in inventory.
Yeah.
If you are looking to buy something in this market, you need to find it. You need to act quickly. And one of the things that I see a lot is folks have their heart set on a certain area, certain school system, this sort of thing. They just have to realize there may not be houses that they can afford or even buy in those areas. So the flexibility is the biggest thing. Anybody coming in this market, you've got to be flexible.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to pull the trigger quickly with very few, if any, concessions or contingencies, or, it's going to be really hard to buy something in this market.
One of the things that was important to me, and I guess it depends on the buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was probably the 4th or 5th house I've ever owned. I wanted money already spent in existing home. I didn't want to do a new build. I've done new builds before.
Right.
Because then after that, you got to spend money on everything, right? But backyard entertaining was important to me. And a lot of the homes I looked at were either, they may have been spec homes. So they were, the builder built them. Mm-hmm. And then now I don't know if you deal a lot with spec homes, but there wasn't a lot when it came to a patio or a screened in porch. And I jumped on this house because of what we have in the backyard. Overpaid, or said I'll go up. I escalated to $70,000. Wow. And we only had to go up 20.
Yeah.
And they took our offer, but because it's like we had to act quick. Mm-hmm. But then that was the one thing that was important to me, and maybe it's important to other men or women who like to use the backyard and cook and stuff. And I was all over it when I saw
everybody is
meets my requirement.
Yeah, I got an email this morning from a guy that's interested in moving here, and he says, here's our list, and there were probably 20 things that they wanted that they're never going to find in one house. We want 3,000 square feet. We want 5 bedrooms. We want 3 acres. We don't want an HOA. It was just all of this long. And I just called him back and I said, you're going to have to be flexible because you have described a house that does not exist. And but everybody's different. Some people love a backyard. Some people don't want a yard at all.
Right.
We're talking about like Cliff Farm and that sort of thing, where you literally have no yard, but it's walkable. You're walking distance from restaurants and this sort of thing. So everybody's different.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised a lot of times that for example, I had one that was a husband and wife and 4 kids. And I'm like, okay, we got to find a place and for the kids, a backyard, maybe. They didn't want any of that. They said, our kids never go outside. We don't care about a yard at all. This is what we want. And so, if I had prejudged these folks, I'd have missed that mark tremendously.
Yeah.
But, what I tell my clients is give me your must-haves and your just wants. What are the things that you must have? Okay, you like to cook, so you got to have a big kitchen. or you just, is it that important? Do you must have it, or do you just want it?
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is focus in on the things that are really important, because at the end of the day, there is no perfect house for anybody. And so that flexibility is really important in this market.
Let me ask you this. And this is not to throw any builder under the bus, but I'm going to assume that you can drive around and have clients with you, and you can come across neighborhoods that were built in a seller's market where maybe the materials weren't, they were cheaper materials, less brick, less whatever. And then you have your areas where you can clearly tell it was a buyer's market, where there was just some of those aesthetics or the quality. Is that common here in North Alabama?
Well, one thing we're not allowed to do as realtors is steer people anywhere.
Sure.
We can give our opinion on build quality. Yeah. Most of that sort of thing is pretty evident when you walk in the door.
Okay.
You walk in and there's high ceilings and thick crown molding and granite in the kitchen, or you walk in, there's popcorn, there's Formica.
Right.
Those kind of things are pretty self-evident. Sure. But, again, what we try to do when we work with clients is, okay, give me your list. Again, must-haves and your just wants. If this is important to you, if it points toward a higher-end house, that's what we're going to go look at. And that's the thing. Everybody wants, a big, nice HGTV house at a fixer-upper budget.
Yeah.
And just doesn't happen in this market.
Yeah.
But a lot of times build quality is important. To some people, just size and location is more important than build quality. Mm-hmm. So it just comes down to the buyer.
I love Alabama because we actually have brick.
We have a lot of brick.
4 sides brick.
Yeah, not a lot of stucco.
No, we had a lot of siding in Virginia, and you could always tell a seller's market when it was just siding.
Yeah.
And then if you had brick, like, oh, must have been a buyer's market.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's really funny is some of the most expensive neighborhoods now are not brick. Again, if you look at Cliffs Farms and out near the stadium, those $1 million houses, they're using, it's kind of a hardy board siding is what it's called.
Yeah, sure.
But they paint them different colors and they look nice.
Yeah.
But again, it just goes back to preference.
Any final thoughts, Tim?
No, not really. If you're in the market, we'd love to help you out. Just give us a call. The big thing is in this market, it is still very much a seller's market. Inventory is low. Interest rates going up. You just have to, be flexible and be ready to adjust your sights a little bit. And, good Lord willing and a good realtor, you'll get one.
You can do a video tomorrow?
I do a video just about every day.
What's it going to be on tomorrow? Give us a preview.
I've got, what am I doing? I've got a house in Decatur that I'm going to do a walkthrough on. I've got a video that I'm going to do on a lot of stuff we just talked about, the rising interest rates and that sort of thing.
What is your boundary, by the way? What's like your limit of how far you're going to travel?
We can go all over the state. Personally, Madison, Morgan, Limestone is our backyard. Okay. So that's pretty much where we sit.
Yeah. Yep. Very well.
All right.
Tim Knox, appreciate you.
Thank you, buddy.
Revolved Realty. And check them out. And until next time, have a good one.
Part 3 someday.
Part 3 someday, exactly.
All right.
Have a good one.